see. We've had 200 people register. So
that's great.
yeah.
Well done.
Excellent.
Hi, everyone joining. We're gonna wait for a couple of minutes before we kick off to give the time to everyone to join. Hi, Rada. Oh, that's Asma. Hi, Asma.
Under the cover of Rada.
Exactly. Hi, Tara. Hello, Fadi. I think we have almost all of our guests on the call, which is good. Tab, I'm gonna put us live on Facebook because I know a few people do end up watching us through Facebook. And then we would be good to start, good to go. Right. Okay. Welcome everyone to our webinar, Job Creation, what the role of the diaspora is. Thank you for everyone for making the time to join. I will really quickly introduce our panelists today and then do a bit of intro of why are we doing a webinar about job creation and is there a role for diaspora organizations to play in this place? Before I hand it over to each of our guests today to talk a little bit more about their organizations, what they've done, what they've learned, and what more can be done, which I think is the more interesting part of what we're talking about. My name is Maya Hodroj. I am a co-founder of Impact Lebanon, a 14-month-old organization that is mostly targeting the diaspora and has done a couple of different initiatives. I am joined by Jarja Ie, who is a co-founder and CEO of Lebnet, Wissam Kairouz, who sits on the board of both Life and Seal, but today is representing Seal, and Jean-Marc Jaber, who sits on the board of Life, Lebanese and finance executive. It did. As I was prepping for today's webinar, I couldn't stop, but I had a bit of a reality check moment, reflecting on the events of the last week. It's a bit hard to in the Lebanese context. It's a bit hard to decide to reflect on the events of the last week, but then you're like, yeah, but the last month wasn't that better either, and then the last year wasn't that better either. But I think this past week has been quite heavy on so many levels, and it does bring in each one of us a bit of a bit more of a cynical side of where are we going, and how much can we be forward looking, where can we derive a bit more of optimism and drive to keep pushing. But actually it's really the reason why we design events like this, why different people that would have never met before or would have never met otherwise try to find threads of cooperation, collaboration between different organizations, whether they're diaspora based or Lebanon based, to see what else can be done. Within the theme of job creation specifically, if we put politics aside, today one of the worst grievances in Lebanon is really the despair of the youth and the active labor force in finding opportunities. Whether it's the economic crisis, the pandemic, the Beirut blast, all of these have compounded the crisis that is facing Lebanese today. But even before the current meltdown, the Lebanese economic growth did not translate into job creation. I know it very well because I found myself really quickly after having graduated needing to leave the country. This is largely due to an over-reliance on trade, on banking, on public sectors as primary sector for the economy. And well, obviously that was not really sustainable. Today, Impact Lebanon is joining forces with SEAL, LebNet, and LIFE to think together. It is a continuation of a lot of initiatives that have been based on collaboration and working together to see what else can be done, what more can be done. We are hoping to use the space first to present to you and everyone attending and listening in what the nature of the work of these organizations is, but immediately switch to what more can be done. I think we were discussing earlier what success looks like for this webinar is on the back of it, we have more projects to work on, more concrete ideas that we can develop that can support job creation. Without overdue, I'm gonna start by sharing my screen. We have very few slides that I'll be using as a support for today's session. Are the slides sharing?
Yeah, you may want to put it on
presentation
screen.
mode.
Yeah, presentation.
Yeah. Right, so thinking about job creation is a really very broad spectrum, and being an ex-consultant myself, what is better than breaking a spectrum into few pillars? When we're thinking about job creation, we thought that there are 5 different pillars that we could talk about or think through. One is by supporting enterprises in Lebanon, whether they're for-profit or social enterprises in Lebanon, and helping them scale and grow. 2 is by providing people in Lebanon access to global talent marketplaces by helping them find jobs inside or outside Lebanon. 3 is by providing product export opportunities. 4 is through upskilling Lebanese talent. And then finally, through advocacy work for safe, inclusive, and decent jobs. I'm using these just to help us guide us through what is today being done, and then hopefully use these as a platform to think through what more can be done. I will pass it over to Wissam to talk us through more about what SEAL has done in the last few years within that space. Wissam, over to you.
Great, thank you, Maya, and hi, George, Jean-Marc, and the rest of the panelists. Thank you all for joining today. Look, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Whether today you talk about yesterday or yesterday about the week before, so on and so forth, it seems like the crisis, the dire need of the population in Lebanon continues to grow and grow exponentially, unfortunately. A lot of these organizations, whether it's SEAL or LIFE or LebNet or many organizations in Lebanon and outside, frankly, wouldn't need to exist if it wasn't for that consistently increasing crisis, worsening crisis, and increasing need to help in Lebanon. But here we are. SEAL, for just a little bit of background, SEAL has been around for a while. Since the inception of the organization in 1997, we've always focused on, as part of our mission statement, our primary objective, we have focused on community-driven and sustainable economic development, providing grants in various forms to local communities, not individuals, not charity, but local communities, cooperatives, municipalities, NGOs, or in partnership with NGOs, with the objective of providing grants with the plan of starting, scaling, or improving a business that helps create and preserve jobs, or improve in a sustainable way. And the sustainability point is one you'll hear me talk about a few times today, because it's an important one. But to basically preserve job and improve in a sustainable way the standards of living of the beneficiary groups of people or communities. We have broadly defined a few focus areas, and they are, as some of you may know or you've seen on the website, agriculture production, water and irrigation, women in the workforce, a critical one for us, business skills and training, and then more recently, over the last few years, environment focused projects, given that crisis continues to get worse. And last but not least, we've done that selectively, and unfortunately, a lot more so recently, humanitarian focused projects. Since the inception of the organization, again, about 23 years ago, we have funded just under 175 projects, 173, 174, with a few already vetted and approved in the pipeline, all over the country, literally all over the country, regardless of sections of the community, no religious, political, or other affiliations. And so far, we've deployed directly in economic development project, about $8 million since the inception of the organization. We can talk a bit later about some examples, some of the projects that we've done, if and when relevant. But I thought that'd be a good overview of where we've been, what we've done, and why we're here.
Thank you, Wissam. Super helpful and also super inspiring to see. And that applies, I think, equally to all three organizations we have as guests here, to have turned passion and patriotism into an institution that has withstand quite a few years, quite a few crises. And so thank you for providing a lot of us in the diaspora with a platform to help more. On to Life with Jean-Marc.
Thank you, Maya. So a couple of words on Life. Life was started in 2009. It has 4 pillars, connecting the diaspora, the Lebanese in the diaspora, nurturing the next generation through scholarship and mentorship, promoting economic growth in Lebanon, and most recently our new pillar, essentially advocating for policy and policy change. We have 850 members across 4 verticals. Think of them as fields, professional fields. So finance, which is our origin and our heritage, consulting, law, and tech. We have 12 chapters spread around equally, actually, across Europe, North America, the Middle East, and Asia. So I'm a board member of Life, and I also lead our Promote pillar. If I focus on within Promote, the job creation side of what Life has done, we've supported over the past couple of years a number of organizations that tick some of these boxes that you mentioned, Maya. So upskilling, creating job opportunities, matching Lebanese companies with customers and marketplaces outside the country, so on and so forth. So for instance, we have been supporting both Coady and SE Factory since 2019. These are 2 coding bootcamp or programming schools, if you will, targeting the underprivileged in Lebanon with no computer science background, and taking them, and someone who would have worked as a bartender or in a restaurant or valet parking or whatever, and train them into tech jobs and changing their lives literally. So Cody has as of Q4 graduated 78 students and placed them into tech jobs such as full stack web developers, software engineers, quality assurance, etc. Across 8 countries, 88% of which stayed in Lebanon. I think the key thing that you'll hear us say today is helping people earn a decent living in Lebanon. As a factory, similar approach. We did that in partnership with Al-Fanar, which is a wonderful organization focused on venture philanthropy in the Arab world, led by Michel Mraadeh, who's actually a former life member as well. SE Factory has 153 graduates, again, across, that were all placed across a plethora of tech jobs, 45% of which working for international companies across a number of countries, 93% of which stayed in Lebanon. BOT stands for Bridge, Outsource, Transform, is a more recent company or social enterprise, as they are, that we've decided to support, again, with the help of Al-Fanar. This is more of an outsourcing provider of high quality digital services to Lebanese and international companies. So as typical of outsourcing, you'll take a project and then you'll fulfill the project for a duration of time. They have 1,900 registered freelancers, 20% of which have earned a revenue across over more than 60 unique clients, 120 unique projects serving more than 60 individual companies. Again, across a number of sectors, IT related, e-commerce, data collection, retail, etc. I'm just giving you some details to give a sense of the breadth of what these social enterprises have done. I think the focus, similarly to what Wissam said, the focus for all these social enterprises that we've decided to back has been to meet the minimum cost recovery ratio or sustainability. The idea that over time, these organizations achieve self-sufficiency. Now, life would help them with grants, with mentorship, with funding, with access to our network, but ultimately they've got to be able to fly solo. We've done a couple of other things as part of life, one of which was to also support another wonderful initiative called Jobs for Lebanon. You may have seen on social media, they've been very, very, very vocal at advertising and spreading the word. It's essentially a team of Lebanese expatriates that have come together to build a hiring platform. Think a marketplace where demand for jobs will be posted and the supply of jobs out of Lebanon will be, essentially talent in Lebanon will apply to those vacancies, and then hopefully there's a match that's made. We're talking big numbers. Over 1,300 jobs were generated on the platform. 8,000 or so candidates have applied, and 200 placement, so 200 matches have been executed. And again, they're very active all around the world. Life's helped them by essentially helping broaden the word and coalesce a number of so-called life ambassadors to essentially, within their specific chapters, help them increase their reach, essentially. And I'll mention one last initiative, which is also tech related, which is with the Holberton Academy, which is a software engineering school out of Silicon Valley, which is now operating in Lebanon. It's one of our most recent initiatives. They've just filled their second cohort, where Life is funding 10 scholarships. And this is an academy that trains into deep tech. Think machine learning and AI, think blockchain and crypto, think augmented reality or virtual reality, etc. So again, a number of different initiatives that have helped create jobs, upskill talent, and place them into jobs, all around the world, which obviously with COVID now can be done remotely a lot more easily than perhaps was the case a year ago.
Sounds good. I think we do have Fadi Bizri from SC Factory, Marianne Bitar from BOT, and Neil Eljor from Jobs for Lebanon also attending this webinar. So it would be great to hear from them as well about these amazing partnerships, but also what more can be done. One very important point to myself, but also to everyone else at Impact Lebanon, is to really thank Life for their partnership over the last few months since the explosion. They've been a really good partner, basically, in helping us figure out quite a few things. So thank you, Jean-Marc, and through you to everyone else working at Life, Zaina Mhanna, Zaina Farhat, and Lemi specifically. Moving on to Georges and Lebnet. Over to you, Georges.
Thank you. So basically, just in a nutshell, Lebnet is a North American, US and Canada network of high-tech professionals. The goal, the main, if you wish, goal, objective, or of the organization is really to help the members of the network advance their careers. But of course, as part of that benefit to our members, everybody wants to help Lebanon. So giving back efforts to Lebanon have always been as a benefit to the members. But so we've been of course very involved for years now on mentoring startup founders in Lebanon. We've partnered with accelerators on the ground, one of them being Speed. So we have, before I go into that, we have 1,200 members in North America. We're in about 13 cities between US and Canada, where we have communities that meet when COVID was not there. Now we have all virtual events basically going on. And we produce a lot of content around tech and what have you that we post. So that's kind of what the network is. As far as giving back and supporting enterprises in Lebanon, like I said, we partnered for 6-7 years now with Speed as an accelerator, and the graduates of the accelerator, the top 3 or 4 would come to Silicon Valley under a program that we had called Lebnet Ignite, and they would attend boot camps in Silicon Valley, where our members would also help them and mentor them and coach them and sit with them and discuss strategy. It's been a fairly successful program, and that has kept us busy. And we thought for the longest time that was the main contribution that we would have. Unfortunately, we realized later, about 2 years ago, that job creation was more important than just helping the startups. So we needed to get involved into a little bit more macro level job creation, which is really encouraging our members and in North America to outsource work to Lebanon. And we've kind of been working hard at that. So we have vetted some partners on the ground in Lebanon, names that have been mentioned already and names that haven't. And this way, when a demand comes up, we actually refer them to those partners to see if a match can happen. We work mainly on larger engagements when companies need to have a whole team maybe outsourced to Lebanon with longer term type engagements. And of course, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but of course, Jobs for Lebanon is also partners of ours, which is where we refer people when they have, any type of requirement that they might have for a job. But it could even be a smaller engagement. It could be just a 3-4 month engagement too. So we direct them to Jobs for Lebanon, and it's been a good partnership too there. Let me see what you got. Sorry, because this is not my slide. I'm trying to go through it quickly. These are my words, but not my slide. So I provided that on a Word doc. So basically, right now we're advising companies, but in an ad hoc fashion. We don't have a structured program for companies that want to enter the US Canadian market. we're doing it on an ad hoc basis when we get someone who reaches out to us, and we're also opportunistically helping startup raise money. As a matter of fact, we will be announcing it. For the first time, we did it as a pilot. We actually raised half a round for one startup in Lebanon, and syndicated it as a LebNet syndication. It'll get announced. I'm not going to mention the name, but we hadn't done that before, but we felt that this was something of value that we can also do. This was, of course, a startup that we had already hosted under the LebNet Ignite program in Silicon Valley, and also one that showed some promise. As far as upskilling LebNet talent, we have partnerships with AUB and LAU right now, and basically we have a partnership with AUB where we're opening up some of our internships here in the US to their students. And then we're also sponsoring some of the team's final year projects. When we say we sponsor, meaning a member of LebNet would sponsor an FYP project, and then we'll guide the team throughout the year about the results of the project. We also look for some of our members to get involved in some graduate research project with AUB. And the one that's kind of the most successful but also interesting one is something called Silicon Valley Channel that AUB has created, whereby the LebNet on the side, on the North American side, would supply them with speakers. And they have every month or couple of weeks a speaker from LebNet talking about a topic to the student community and the larger community. With the LAU, we've also we've just actually signed an MOU a couple of months ago to have some of our members become lecturers and adjunct faculty at LAU with specific industry knowledge and against accredited classes of LAU, not just a topic, but rather they'll be doing lectures within classes of some professors that already are given out an accredited class. Advocating for safe, inclusive, and decent. Of course, these are all values that we stand by, we support. One thing that's probably worth mentioning is that women in tech is an important focus for us. We even have right now a whole series of women in tech videos and webinars that are happening in the US to encourage women in tech, but also to kind of highlight and feature some of the executives in our membership that are women and make them role models and even coaches and mentors to the more early in career young people that are coming up here in the US. So I'll leave it at that for now. There's a lot much more to talk about, but I'm more interested in figuring out how to improve the job creation part. So I'm sure that we have a lot to discuss.
Thank you. That is a really good summary, and it's one where I think a lot of, if we have any previous students, whether at AUB and LAU, people who would have benefited from a sponsorship within of their final year project, if they're in engineering degrees, I think there are things when you grow up in Lebanon, and then opportunities that you have access to, and sometimes you don't know how these opportunities are coming through. I think the amount of the opportunities that the three organizations have created over the last 10, 20 years is a lot to be proud for, and I think a lot of people in Lebanon would have a lot to be grateful for that the diaspora is there to a certain extent. On a personal level, George, in our first call as LebNet and Impact Lebanon, definitely had the mentorship hat on, and I think the insights, the advice that he's given about Impact Lebanon being such a young organization were extremely, extremely helpful. So thank you for that. Very quickly, it's probably going to take me 90 seconds to go through the work that we've done on the job creation side in the last 14 months. But essentially, if I follow the same flow, we have allocated close to $1 million to micro and small businesses that were impacted by the explosion after the fundraiser that we launched on the 4th of August. We provided a few webinars that target Lebanese students who are interested in moving outside of Lebanon for job opportunities, particularly around visa and immigration questions within the UK. We've also been running since April a mentorship program that supports people in CV writing, prepping for interviews, but also some broader career conversations. And then since May, we've been running the Kene, which is an online concept store that is aiming at building a non-Lebanese buying audience to sell sustainable Lebanese products, primarily within the design space. So this has been our attempt at supporting within this vertical. I will stop sharing slides. I think slides tend to be a bit less personal. Here we go. And I will try to shift more the conversations around collaboration and hear back from you what the experience has been in terms of collaborating. I think the most prominent example that we have was the collaboration that happened on the back of the explosion. But right before we started this call, George and Wissam have told me that they've spent the last 2 days together on calls supporting a specific initiative. So if we reflect that, if you reflect on your previous experiences within your organizations, is collaboration happening? If it is happening, how is it happening? Can more be done? Is there value in doing more? And I would think about collaboration both within existing organizations, so diaspora-based organization, but also with organizations based in Lebanon. Who wants to go for this one?
Sure, I'm happy to start. Thanks, Maya. So yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier the blast back in August. That's the most recent, and in my opinion, one of the most impressive ways, at least that I was involved with and witnessed from a collaboration of the diaspora perspective. As soon as the blast happened, obviously everyone who is Lebanese, who knows Lebanon, who cares about Lebanon, in Lebanon, outside of Lebanon, was looking for ways to help and generally get involved. From my perspective, I guess the blast was a bit of a breaking point in the situation in Lebanon, right? You made the comment at the beginning of the call that yesterday, was a bad day in Lebanon. Yesterday, last week was a bad day, last month, last year. But the blast was, I don't know, from my perspective, a little different. It imposed a very harsh reality on the ground and sent a very loud message to the diaspora that urgent help was needed immediately. We've all been saying, and to a certain extent, working on ways to help, ways to optimize help. This was a little different. People everywhere stepped up to help families, to help friends, to help colleagues' families, Lebanese and non-Lebanese. It was impressive. But it quickly became apparent to many of us that the only way to effectively and optimize the response to the strategy was to collaborate, was to join forces. Several organizations, in the example I'm giving, and that's just one example, given the many phenomenal initiatives that came into place, that happened and came together immediately after the blast. The reason I'm mentioning it because 3 of these organizations are actually on this call: LIFE, LabNet, and SEAL, with Jamhour Alumni and the US-based Kuwait America Foundation very quickly, within hours or days, formed a unified humanitarian effort, the Beirut Emergency Fund, that hopefully some of you know about, to pool resources and experiences based on what we've all, either individually or as organizations, have been involved with historically, share information, which was critical at the time given the chaos, and split tasks, allocate tasks and items on the to-do list to maximize the results and the impact that initiative was going to do. going to have. Donor support globally and trust in this initiative, obviously sponsored by these organizations, was overwhelming. The work was quick, the work was efficient. There was full transparency in vetting, selecting organizations on the ground and groups of people. Some of them organizations, some of them were groups that literally and naturally came together, you know, within hours of the blast to try and do work on the ground. And then obviously, and as if not more importantly, allocating the funds on the back end as we were all fundraising, again, globally, with obviously prioritizing the most pressing needs on the ground. And, you know, I'm sure we all agree that the work that was done was a fraction of the work that was and still is needed. But I genuinely believe that that was an example of 1 + 1 was not equal to 2. It was 1 + 1 equals to 3, if not to 4, which was phenomenal in my opinion. And another example of collaboration, we've done several projects as groups of organization in the diaspora. But before I go to that, I know both Georges and Jean-Marc mentioned earlier Jobs for Lebanon. I wanna just give a little bit of airtime and credit to the youth. The youth in Lebanon and outside of Lebanon is doing phenomenal work and showing a level of proactiveness that is, in my opinion, the reason why we should all continue to have hope that we can fix this. Organizations like Jobs for Lebanon, who have been working on, I'm not going to go through what their mission statement, what their objectives are. Both Jean-Marc and Georges spoke about that a little while ago, but those guys have been doing a phenomenal job. About a week or 2 weeks ago, another organization, another small group initially of very young Lebanese in Lebanon and outside of Lebanon, almost organically formed a platform on Instagram called LebBridge. I don't know if you guys know about it or not. If not, I would recommend you go look it up. Within a few days, they got a lot of attention with people looking to help in some form or shape or get involved in some form or shape with job creation in Lebanon. What did those guys do within a few days? They quickly looked for ways to optimize and complement the impact of their work, as opposed to trying to replicate what somebody else is already doing, and already in touch with other organizations to figure out how they can pool forces and join forces, whether it's on a project basis or something more systematic than that. You know, don't know, we'll leave that obviously up to them. But I genuinely believe that by collaborating, we can make a bigger impact. Organizations here, again, you know, See Life LebNet worked a couple of years ago on a project, again, to create jobs in Lebanon. It's called the LFE initiative, Lebanon for Entrepreneurs. If some of you are familiar with it, it was basically the creation of an IT center for startups in Lebanon. It acted as a gateway for the Diaspora network to engage with local entrepreneurs, either looking for advice or looking for ways to structure their business or looking for funds. And hundreds of Lebanese in the technology and finance industries mobilized very quickly to get involved, to spend the time and energy to look into these startups, meet many of them, to find ways to help and get involved. These are just a couple of examples, but I certainly echo what you said in that collaboration will certainly make a much bigger difference, both from a pooling of capital and pooling of expertise and resources perspective.
That makes sense. I think the risk of duplication is really high, and the sum of the parts will be bigger than the parts themselves. I mean, the synergies that would be created would be bigger, but also the sustainability. And we've all been part of efforts, or we've all heard about efforts that would have started with all the energy and the good faith in the word, and then falls through. Jean-Marc, from your perspective, any specific pitfalls really on how with all of the good intentions collaboration might not always work, and what have been the challenges to bridging a little bit more across different efforts.
Thank you, Maya. I think one of the challenges we saw, I echo what Wissam said on all these diaspora organizations coming together, and I do think that the Beirut Emergency Fund was probably the biggest manifestation of what we've all done together, at least to the scale we've done together. So, just to put some numbers for people on this webinar who are not familiar, I mean, the BEF raised close to $9 million, of which 7 million have already been dispersed. I mean, these are big numbers, helping more than 1,000 homes, thousands of individuals. So it's been quite a sheer, the sheer scale of it is probably unprecedented for what an NGO has done on the ground. And we're not talking about one NGO. And I'd like to also talk about all these organizations on the ground in Lebanon, not the diaspora ones that typically on these webinars, but the ones on the ground, because you had at any point in time, sometimes 5, 10 NGOs serving the same need, either food, shelter, rehab, you name it. So one of the challenges we had as BEF is to sift through all of these organizations. One is screen them for the level of seriousness, diligence, the ethos. We wanted to help people that share the same values as we do: meritocracy, being gender blind, being apolitical, being helping confessions regardless of of what confession they were. So basically really nationwide support. And so one of the challenges was sifting through all of these various NGOs and diligencing them in a proper way. And I'd like to shout out to Tara Hermes, who leads 3QA, who founded and leads 3QA, which is a very professional organization who's essentially focused on the third sector, right? Not private, not public, but the third sector. So social enterprises, non-governmental, not-for-profit organization. She was an incredible partner to help us diligence, monitor, coordinate, whether it was the distribution of funds, the follow-up, etc., checking receipts, invoices. So it's quite a big effort on the ground, and particularly that we are a diaspora organization. We don't have members on the ground, so we have to, we're the outside, and we needed someone on the ground to help link us to the recipients, the beneficiaries of our help. And again, I won't mention, there were at least 20, if not 30 NGOs that we, as BEF, collaborated with on the ground. We can't mention them all. It'll take the rest of this webinar, but there's a lot of incredible grassroots or more organized efforts, some registered, some not yet registered, that are essentially filling the void that the state has left ever since, well beyond the blast, but from before the blast to post the blast. And I think without them all, we wouldn't have, we would have just a checkbook and not known what to do with it. So I don't know, George, if you'd like to add anything to that from what you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said and what Wissam said is spot on. Basically, we can't. There's so many organizations that are being involved, and we can't name them all. But one thing that's going to be important, this is a thought that I have, is that this is a long game, right? But the nafas tawil. So and what I recommend to everybody who's involved is that we need to collaborate. I mean, I know this is an overused term, but seriously, if we don't collaborate, we're going to have so much redundancy. I know Wissam and I had a discussion with a group of people yesterday about we have to avoid redundancy, and really the reason, the way to do it is, let's focus on collaboration, and let's focus on each organization figuring out, carve out for itself maybe a niche within that big ecosystem and add a lot of value there. And that's going to be critical for creating jobs. Now, it's a long discussion. We probably need some sort of an overarching organization or group or virtual team like here and people on this call to continue to have the discussions around what does it take to carve out the whole industry in Lebanon and how to go about it. But each organization should look out for the others who are doing work and try to carve out, like I said, a niche for itself to play along with this. And one more thing I do want to say, and maybe I'm jumping the gun here, is that right now, the best thing we can do is to create little mini success stories of job matching and creating of work. And the reason why we need a big list and database of these little success stories that have happened, whether they're happening or not, and we need to build on that, because it is those little success stories of matching employers with talent is what's going to all help us build the case as we go along of why Lebanon is a good place to go outsource to. It's a tough discussion. When we started, which was January of what is it now, to 2019, it was a different story then to create tell a story about Lebanon. It was a much better story. After October 17th and after the explosion, the story is getting very challenged, and it's okay. We're not going to give up, but we need those mini success stories. I feel very strongly about that, and we need to be able to collect them and use them across the organizations, and not necessarily to be owned by one organization or the other. Did I go off topic, Maya?
Bilakis, this is, I mean, that is very much at what I was thinking about listening. I think we all grew up in different environments where collaboration is a value that you seek, right, for the sake of it. It's inherently good. My experience, or our experience in the last few months, it is really, really hard, right? It's not happening, not because people don't believe in collaboration, or at least most people. It's because executing on it is not trivial. You have differences in what people consider are priorities, right? You have differences in working styles. You have differences in experiences or skill set. It is worth it. I think the pain of getting there is worth it. I mean, pain is too big of a word. I'll take it back. But the struggles to get there, the challenges to get there are definitely worth it. I'm already seeing quite a few ideas being suggested by different attendees, which is really, really good.
Maya, can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Just to clarify what I meant by collaboration, I didn't mean that all the organizations have to work together on a daily basis. I meant, let's avoid redundancy, right, in what we are offering, and let's all try to carve out a piece. So for instance, LebNet carves out its own piece of what it thinks it's good at, what its core competency is, and try to help, but also always reach out to the other organizations to make sure that we're not being redundant, or we're not working on redundancy. And that's what I meant by collaboration. You know, this is all together, let's do it. No, that's not going to do it, right? We each need to work in our lanes, but make sure that we don't have redundancy. What Wissam mentioned, which was a great example, and all the thanks really goes to his brother Habib, who happens to be on both, you know, boards of Seal Life and LebNet. Is when the explosion happened, Habib sent an email to all of us and said, I am part of all these organizations. You guys should collaborate on making sure we can help with the explosion. And that's where the Beirut Emergency Fund came up. It was more about, and we all played our part. Nobody wanted to, we let Seal be the lead because they were experienced in how to collect and send money. We just put our members, we informed them, and we made them all route their donations through the Beirut Emergency Fund. So I don't want to get into that detail, but that was a true beautiful story of collaboration. And it was about reducing redundancies, because everybody wanted to do something then. We just said, let's do it together. It has bigger impact and more sustainability, because Seal does it for a living in a way.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I'm starting to take notes. I think the one thing that you've highlighted is a gap, is a clear gap in terms of something that can be done is that collecting in one place of the small successes and then learning how to share them, either to inspire or to do more of them or to repeat or to avoid. So that is definitely one.
Maya, I want to interrupt one more time because I completely missed out the fact that, and the greater even partnership that happened and the collaboration was that Impact for Lebanon, your organization, which has actually raised probably more money than the Beirut Emergency Fund, was willing to kind of also collaborate with the Beirut Emergency Fund to reduce redundancies and to use knowledge that was collected on the fly by all these organizations. So kudos to you. I mean, you guys have done an amazing job. Amazing job.
Thank you, thank you. Very tough days. A lot of anxiety comes up whenever we remember. I mean, less so for us than many people like it. I would like to invite Fadi Bizri from SE Factory. Going back to the theme of collaboration, it would be a bit of an echo chamber if the four of us keep talking to each other about what we've done. So we thought that we would broaden the scope a little bit more and hear from different organizations that have been doing amazing job over many years. Hear back a little bit more about their stories, but also I think that the key question that we're trying to solve today is, what are the obstacles to growth and how can we work together better to address them? So Fadi is here from SE Factory, and Fadi, I think you can talk, but you've just unmuted yourself.
All right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Hi, Fadi.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Very well.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to be invited to such panels. Seeing so many Lebanese people all over the world collaborating and working together. I call it, this is the way Lebanon should be all the time. And I just want to say hi to, I think I know all of you, Maya, George, and Jean-Marc. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the intro and for the great talk. Wissam, I know your brother as well at Ro. We're both in the tech VC space. So it's like we're connecting with a lot of friends. I'm a co-founder at SE Factory, which is a social enterprise in Lebanon that's 5 years old, almost 6 years old now. And predominantly, what we do is we run a coding bootcamp with a special twist. The idea, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, was that there's a lot of demand locally and internationally for skilled developers. In our case, what we call full stack web developers. I come from the tech innovation space, and I come from a computer engineering background, so I know what it takes for a good developer to be hired, especially from a quote unquote good companies, and that it's not easy. So I realized, and I knew, of course, we had so much talent. So we came up with SE Factory, a bit of a unique formula. At least at the time, it was unique, which was, we're going to do a coding bootcamp. We're going to first of all select people. So we're going to do an outreach campaign. We're going to select people. We're going to train them intensively for 3.5 months. And I think this is what really pushed things forward in terms of success rate. And we're going to work very hard on bridging them with the job market. So part of our work at SE Factory, it's not just on the training side, it's on the company side. We have a business development team led by the brilliant Leah in our team. And we go and we seek out companies all over the world and in Lebanon. We have companies from 10 different countries now, over 100 that have been signed up with us. We call them RPs, recruitment partners. And whenever we graduate every batch, we do training cycles throughout the year. And every batch is about 20 times 2, so 40 students now. And every time we graduate a batch, we have all of these companies that have been prepped, and they meet the students. The students pitch their final project. It used to be physical, now it's all over Zoom. And the job interviews start on the spot. And our hypothesis was that if we do it this way, it's a form of vertical integration, if you think about it. It's outreach, it's selection, curation, training, and job placement. If we do it this way, we will achieve a very high percentage recruitment rate. And as Jean-Marc mentioned, and thank you for mentioning our numbers, yeah, we have an over 90% 90 hiring rate over the past 5 years, 6 years. The results were very, very, very good. We're very happy with that. So that formula worked well. And the idea was to be able to do more of that and to do it better. That was the idea. We started off as a pure NGO. So we raised grants from multiple great donors, including Life. Thanks again. But we also, of course, it's all about sustainability. You know, it's in our DNA. We refuse to rely on aid throughout all the time. So once we've proven ourselves and built a brand, we launched a revenue model, several revenue models, and now we basically act like a recruitment agency and like a success-based training for the students. So we tell the companies, if you hire and you're happy, you pay us a fee. It's free. It's free otherwise to meet and interview any student and as many students as you want. And we tell the students, if you get a job from SE Factory, you pay us a success fee. Otherwise, you don't really pay anything, or a very, 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 or a symbolic amount at the entry point. So that's growing. We're not yet sustainable, and this is one of our goals. Actually, I don't know, Maya. Can I share my screen, or is it or am I not allowed to?
This is where I meet my technical, the limits of my technical abilities in Zoom. Do you have the share button? If not, if you have it, go ahead. I fully trust you to share.
Yeah, no, I don't have it actually.
Do you want to send it to me by email? I'll try to share it.
Okay. All right. No worries. Anyways, it's okay. I'll just audio. So far so good, Maya. Right? You're hearing me well. Everything's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Never know with technology. So far it's been so good. We built an amazing brand. We're well known. It's all about internationalizing SE Factory. We need to have more and more companies from outside Lebanon recruiting in Lebanon. We want to turn Lebanon into a digital outsourcing destination. And now with the devaluation, of course, everyone knows it becomes even more attractive. That's an opportunity. The trick is how to do it. Okay, so there's the obvious things, which is you have to fight off some of the negative connotation of Lebanon with the blast and the economy. It's not easy to do business there and the corruption. The other one is to do more and more of, at least in our case, training for jobs. And the third one is to connect with more companies outside and to understand markets outside better. Let me clarify. So we train on full stack web development. So SE stands for Software Engineering Factory. So SE Factory. We train software engineers. And they are full stack web developers. Why full stack web development? For those who don't know, it's because it's a high skill that is in demand, but that is not too specialized. So there's a wide demand across all the global markets and different types of companies, startups and agencies and so on and so forth for skilled, qualified full stack web developers. So it was worth our time to invest in building a program that graduates specifically that skill set. The question that we always ask ourselves now is, what other programs should we train on? We're looking at QA engineering, we're looking at data analysis, we're looking at many different skill sets. So what would really be helpful, this is from the perspective of what can this community, this amazing community, help us with? What would really help us is better understand target markets that are big enough so that we can invest in building programs for that, if you see what I mean. It cannot be overly specialized for only one company, and it cannot be too broad because then the skill set is not differentiated enough. It's like this fine balance. And it has to be a training that is cost effective on our side. It cannot take us a year to train somebody. It has to be 2 months maximum, ideally 1 month, possibly or 1 to 3 months, let's say, to keep it simple. So that's like the big challenge. So any ideas someday would be most welcome. The other one, more simply, is we are on the lookout for companies looking to hire. Literally 2 days ago, we graduated our 2 batches, the Beirut and the Tripoli one. We still call them Beirut and Tripoli, even though it's all on Zoom, but we opened up in Tripoli just before the revolution and just before the crisis, and a year before the crisis. So we graduated 35 amazing students. Literally 2 days ago, they've booked together 113 interviews, and with half of the companies are companies from outside Lebanon or based outside Lebanon. So it's going exceptionally well, and it's clear there's a lot of demand, and it's clear that our output, as it were, the product, which is the type of students to graduate, is very good for that. It's in high demand. We need just more and more of that. So more companies looking to hire in Lebanon. It's something we can help with. And just to finish on something, I'm guessing, I'm not sure how much time I have, but I don't want to take up too much time. And just to add a point about vertically integrating even more, as it were, we offer companies to help them set up teams in Lebanon, because we now say you should build your digital team in Lebanon. What we tell them is, not only are we offering you a tech recruitment service that is very much with a lot of hand-holding, a lot of support for you as a company outside Lebanon, we also offer you what we call the managed service, which is a form of business process outsourcing, whereby we have our own company in Lebanon. We have a company in the UK now. We hire your recruits, whoever they are, tech or non-tech, under our own umbrella company. And we take care of the local admin, the daman, the maliye, all the things that are a nightmare to deal with in Lebanon. All of that admin, we take care of it on behalf of the companies outside. So again, it's all about offering more and more support to just make the whole process of a foreign company setting up a digital team in Lebanon as streamlined as possible. That's our goal for the year. So in a nutshell, more programs, more companies, better, more training types, and being able to access all of that. Any support we can get on that, it would be most welcome. And I thank you again, and I hope I didn't take too much time, Maya.
No, super clear, super structured, and yeah, to the point, Fadi. I'm a big fan of the work that SE Factory is doing, and I think it's clear to understand where the gaps are, right? In terms of, tell us what to train on in the future so that we can help our graduates find jobs easier. So what is in demand, and then helping find job opportunities. I know that you are speaking, I mean, collaboration. I think we're going to have to count how many times we're going to say collaboration in today's call. But I'm reading what Jean-Marc was saying, that already there is collaboration between SE Factory and Jobs for Lebanon, which is really good to know. And on that note, I want to pass it to Neil Jur from Jobs for Lebanon to tell us more about what Jobs for Lebanon is doing, but also what the challenges for growth are. Let me. Neil.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. First of all, thank you, Maya, for organizing this. It's really incredibly empowering to get a really clear overview of everything that's being done by all these incredible organizations and entities. So I'm one of the co-founders of Jobs for Lebanon. I'm also the executive director. And thank you to everyone who mentioned the collaborations. You said it beautifully, really. But if I just want to give an overview of what we've been doing and what we're looking to do in 2021 and beyond, our mission mainly consists of calling onto the diaspora to offer job opportunities to Lebanese talent. We launched just about 10 months ago, so we're fairly young. As everyone knows, we have our website, which allows employers to post jobs and candidates to browse through and apply to jobs directly through the platform. And we are powered by Smart Recruiters, which is one of the leading recruiting softwares out there. We have an incredible team of ambassadors spread across the globe that aim to raise awareness about Jobs for Lebanon through their networks. And they basically help to attract both jobs and quality candidates to the platform. But they also help to build very strong partnerships with entities working towards the same goal. And so you can see that with our partnership with Life through the Life Ambassadors, who've been doing an incredible job. By the way, we're very happy to have them on board, as well as with the collaboration that we have with LebNet. And so you know, Jean-Marc did touch a bit on our numbers, but I'll reiterate them a little bit just to do that. So we do have about 1,400 jobs that have been created to date. We have a database of almost 10,000 candidates. And we know of about 200 hires, and there are several hundred interviews in the pipeline. So that's what we've been able to achieve so far. But of course, the efforts and the growth that we experienced didn't come without obstacles. We did notice that we actually have an issue with not having enough ratio of candidates to jobs that we have on the platform. And so we see that we do need more quality candidates, and not just that, we're seeing that candidates need more supports to become ideal for the international job market. So obviously a lot of these jobs are remote jobs that open up opportunities to the global market. And so this is why we decided one of the two focuses that we're going to have for 2021, and we've been building towards it and working on it, is to provide that support to candidates. And I believe different organizations here touched on that today, the upskilling bit. And it's really that what Jobs for Lebanon is doing through our Campus for Lebanon initiative is basically to assist candidates, and mainly the youth, graduating youth, through this hiring process, from vocational guidance to mentoring to coaching, and then, you know, assisting them, and then obviously the upskilling bit, and then all the way through the actual job matching, to give them all the tools that they need to be prepped for the workforce. So that's kind of an obstacle that we face, and this is what we're kind of doing to tackle that obstacle. The second issue that is, I think, being seen by everyone, not just Jobs for Lebanon, it's that brain drain that has been happening for a while, but then it kind of accelerated following the October events and then following the blast, etc. You know, we all know about that. So there is a consolidated strength. I do believe it's still a bit siloed, but I think we are trying to work towards helping to keep that talent in Lebanon, mainly through the outsourcing efforts. So we also are working on that. We have an incredible team trying to play a part in that brand Lebanon for outsourcing. And really what we're trying to do, our role in all of this is basically scaling what we currently do well, which is matching, instead of matching individuals to jobs, we're looking to match local teams, local providers to projects that are, that can come to Lebanon. So we basically, our role would be to source both those companies who would be interested in providing those projects to Lebanon, as well as the local providers, and then connecting them and supporting them in any way that we can. So that's kind of where we're at today in a nutshell.
Thank you, Neil. You have the flip side of the problem, not enough candidates or quality candidates. And then when you say supporting up on the upskilling side, is there a specific angle, or is it really the full package from mentoring, CV improvement, interview prepping?
So we're doing this on two fronts. As I mentioned Campus for Lebanon, which is an initiative that we're building that will have those four pillars. The first one being discovery, which has to do with really helping, bringing in industry experts to speak to the youth and interested candidates about potential directions that they could take with the skills and the majors that they have, or the interests that they have. So that would be in the form of webinars. And then we are looking towards working on the second pillar, which is the mentorship pillar. And I believe we've had a few talks with Impact Lebanon to see what we can do there. We've had a few very preliminary conversations with Life as well, or at least certain people at Life. So that's still being built, but so those are the first two pillars. The upskilling element is basically the team basically went and put together, sourced a lot of high quality upskilling courses that are either highly discounted or free. And we're putting them in one place so that candidates can kind of, you know, sift through them and even eventually get courses recommended to them based on their interests and their profiles. And then the last pillar of the Campus for Lebanon is the job matching pillar. Now we're also doing a condensed program in collaboration with the UNICEF Shield program and Nawaya, which is called the Career Path program. I believe we're launching today. you'll see the video circulating soon, today or tomorrow. But the idea here is to really, instead of giving them the options to select the different pillars that we have on Campus for Lebanon, the idea with the Career Path program is to actually put those candidates through a condensed step-by-step process that assists them through an employability program, a coaching program, and then the whole job matching element as well. So it's really helping them through that entire process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, I do want to talk about one more obstacle that I think everyone faces, which is the redundancies. You know, like I've heard about SE Factory, of course, and I know the incredible work that you're doing, but Fadi, you were just speaking about that additional element that you do, which is the outsourcing service. You know, I am hearing about it now. I didn't know about it personally, but you know, avoiding redundant, we are trying to work on elements of that as well. So I would love to have a discussion with you, and I know the outsourcing team would as well, so that we can see how we can pool our efforts together. But this is an obstacle that I think a lot of us face, you know, the fact that we do see redundancies happening, and the fact that we do want to work towards collaborating together, and having a better overview on everything that's happening, so we know how to best pool our resources and efforts towards the common goals that we're working on.
I don't think Fadi can reply, so hopefully he'll connect later on this. He's asking if he can speak. Yes. Fadi, allowed to talk. Fadi, you can, Mafrood, you.
Thank you, Maya, for Maya's in control. Yes, we've been in touch with Jobs for Lebanon. We've brainstormed ideas already. We were looking at, I think, Jobs for Lebanon was looking at having some sort of agency model, which might work with us. I mean, we're to discuss. We would love to talk and brainstorm ideas and make it work and collaborate. I mean, we are in that mindset. I was telling George last time I had a call, I think a year ago, that you cannot build an ecosystem by being alone. An ecosystem, by definition, it's multiple groups, entities together. And if you want to build brand Lebanon, there has to be multiple people working together and, you know, fixing this entire pipeline of jobs. So yeah, 100%.
Perfect. Yeah. Glad to hear that. And yeah, I definitely echo what Fadi is saying about building this ecosystem together. And it's that's what gets me going every morning when I wake up. It's the fact that I know that all these Lebanese people are getting a bit emotional here, but it's the truth. It's what drives me. And I know the entire team at Jobs for Lebanon, how everyone is putting everything that they can into this and putting so many hours into making Lebanon work, basically. Yeah.
I think it does come through. The passion definitely comes through whenever we're talking about Jobs for Lebanon, and yeah, I can definitely see it. I think one reflection on the redundancy is it's and that's a question, that's an open question from my side. It is really hard to gauge how much duplication to allow, because some of it is inevitable, but also maybe to a certain extent healthy, because there are different ways of doing things, and then if you have two people trialing it at the same time, then you end up with something with a better model at the end of it. It might not be the worst thing in the world, but the main thing I think that should happen in these cases and these scenarios is communication, right? So that the best practices are shared, the failures are shared. And it's hard. It's very, very hard because everyone is working on different things, and yeah. I don't know if anyone, Georges, Jean-Marc, Wissam, you have any reflection, thoughts?
No, I mean, I guess the only thing I would say, and George addressed that a little bit earlier. I think the work that Jobs for Lebanon and other platforms, you know, Leverage or others are doing is absolutely phenomenal. I would strongly encourage all of you guys, or all of us, frankly, to continue to think about how we can try to cover as much as possible through that collaboration communication, Maya, that you're referencing. Try to cover, for lack of a better term, the supply chain, up and down the supply chain as much as possible by coordinating, even if it means, you know, an organization, a group takes on one or two areas of focus within a bigger mission, as opposed to try and hit the top waves of 6 or 7 different areas to try and help a little bit. I think we can all continue to fine tune and optimize the impact that the various initiatives can have on the ground by linkage, by linking the efforts together, even if that means, you know, everyone or every entity, every organization focuses a little more on, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 areas of that, you know, supply chain, for lack of a better term.
And I want to add one thing, because I know the discussion about collaboration and lack of, you know, reducing redundancy is a little bit complex. What I'll give you one thought for everyone to kind of think of, and this is Wissam and I had that discussion yesterday with another team, is that you know, Jobs for Lebanon is a marketplace, right? So everybody who's doing anything right now, LebNet, Seal Life, SE Factory, BOT, whoever's going to be talking, all the new groups that are popping up, we just need to get creative about how to leverage that marketplace and create niches again and carve out things for us to leverage that marketplace, but do our own specialized work for the goal of creating more jobs in Lebanon, right? So Jobs for Lebanon should not be looked at as a competitor for some of the organization, but rather a tool and a vehicle as a marketplace to use, right? Everybody can register on it, right? From SE Factory and all that on the supply side, even us on the demand side, we can use it as a vehicle. So we found one, it was successful, let's all go behind it, but let's the new group actually go figure out how to carve out new added value within that ecosystem for themselves.
Makes sense.
Now, again, that puts pressure on Jobs for Lebanon to do it right, and we're going to keep nagging them to make sure they do it right? Because it's an important platform for all of us here.
With your guidance, I have no doubt that we'll get there. Really, thank you.
That's cute. That's nice. I mean, thank you both for the thoughts. It's that is extremely helpful. I'm gonna give the mic to Marianne Bitter from BOT. Marianne, I can see 2 of you, so I'm gonna allow the 2 of you to talk.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Maya, first, I would like to thank you and the Impact Lebanon team for organizing this webinar. And most importantly, for the Impact Lebanon Live C LebNet network for believing in us, Lebanese still being in Lebanon, believing in Lebanon's capacities and strengths, and most importantly, believing in partnerships. So I will be very brief introducing our social enterprise BOT, but I'd like to focus much effort at the end on how can the diaspora, how can your organizations support us and contribute to an impact in Lebanon. So Maya, the slides, yeah, thank you.
Here you go.
Thank you. So BOT stands for Bridge, Outsource, Transform. We bridge talent. We work with clients who outsource services to Lebanese youth, and we transform the Lebanese youth journey and livelihoods. So we are the first socially responsible outsourcing platform in the MENA region. We have a pool of freelancers ready to work on remote jobs. They come from low-income communities. They've been trained by local NGOs on digital and workforce readiness skills, NGOs such as DOT, Nawaya, and NJAS, and they're ready to be deployed to work for clients coming from Lebanon or abroad on digital services. So the services they offer are data management, AI training data, staff augmentation, and e-commerce listing. And this can all be done remotely or on-site if the client is in Lebanon. Next. So how it works. We have a team of project managers. They are dedicated to the client. They scope the project. We pilot the project. We do some simulation to really be able to quote the client. And then we deploy through our technology platform freelancers that are available. They have the right skills to do the job, and they have the right linguistic and educational skills to do the job. They are freelancers who work on the project. They are being paid by the hour they work on the project. And once the deliverable is done, the team of BOT does the quality assurance and delivers the project to the client. The client pays us, and we would provide the fees to our talent. Next slide, Maya. So far, what have we done in terms of social impact? We've been operating since 2018. UNICEF Lebanon supported the spin-off of BOT. So far, we have worked with 369 youth, mainly women. Most of more than 50% of them are women. They have collectively generated $370,000 in revenue. They've worked on around 114 projects. And on our platform, we have 2,000 youth ready to be deployed, ready to work with clients abroad or clients in Lebanon. So this is an idea of, this is a slide that shows you who are the clients we have worked with. Mainly the clients have been in Lebanon. They come from the private sector, public sector, academia, NGO. With our youth, we have worked with around 60 clients, over 100 projects, 114 projects so far. And our aim is to grow internationally. So our aim is to position Lebanon eventually as a digital hub, to have clients believe in our talent, believe in our youth, clients who would want to work with us so that we can contribute a bit to the economy and also give the opportunity to our youth to have this exposure to work with international clients. Next slide. So how can the diaspora support? How can the network of your organization support us? First, we'd like to explore opportunities abroad. We want to acquire new clients from the Gulf, from the US. We want them to believe in the quality of our services. We want them to feel that they contributed to Lebanon's economy, to rebuilding Lebanon, supporting our youth who are qualified, trilingual, but they lack the opportunity. We want to also grow locally, increase our market share in Lebanon, in the NGO sector and in the private sector. And most importantly, we want to identify strategic partners in Lebanon, in the region, and in the US that would eventually grow our business, that would create a certain collaboration whereby they work with us on one client and we bring in the services to them. And also, recently we've launched yesterday our Lebanon outsourcing campaign. We'd like you also to spread the news about it. How can companies reach out to freelancers, to several ad agencies, media agencies, software companies in Lebanon to work with them, and also to support the talents of Lebanon and to support remote work. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank Al-Fanar and Life for their contributions, for their guidance and their support in 2020. And of course, the UNICEF funds who supported the launch of BOT, who believed in BOT's capacities in Lebanon. So for me, one of my questions is, what do you expect from us as diaspora, Lebanese diaspora? What do you need from us? How can we be ready so that whenever you ask us to support you, we have the right infrastructure, we have the right information, we have the right talent? So what do you need from us? Because I'm sure there are things that we can do our homework so that whenever the opportunity is there, we're ready for it. Thank you, Maya.
Thank you, Marianne. I mean, before I try to answer the question, I think that there is a big theme on tech, and I think Bilal also has highlighted this in the chat. And there are, I mean, if not duplicated, at least overlapping themes. And it would be good, I think, in a later conversation to see if there is value in unpicking these. I will try to ask Jean-Marc to address, especially that I think Life definitely has more experience than us really in this space. What is the expectation? What should they from organizations like BOT?
You mean from organization on the ground? Well, yeah. I guess the needs we most hear from them from people on the ground, right? So, you know, in terms of supply of talent out of Lebanon, the way we've thought about it is, what is it? What talent is there, and how can we help complement it by funding organizations that are training, that are developing, you know, incremental talent, etc. Platforms like Jobs for Lebanon, others on the chat actually, which I wasn't aware of, which we should look into and try to collaborate with as well, are seeking to match the demand that we have abroad to supply on the ground. I come from the financial services industry, and it used to be that a lot of the back office of many banks and financial institutions was in places like India and what have you, where people spoke good English, where people worked hard, and where at the time, that was all obviously pre-COVID, you know, you could outsource some of these jobs, you know, either to an external company or even sometimes to your own company that has a subsidiary abroad. You know, there's no reason why Lebanon couldn't be an outsourcing center for many of these back office, front office, you name a job, particularly in an area of COVID. Even after COVID is behind us, we're all getting accustomed to remote jobs and remote working. So there's no reason why we couldn't supply a lot of that talent out of Lebanon. And that would help the youth stay in Lebanon and people to earn a living in Lebanon. So I think what you know, we can be a channel to companies, to funds, you know, the whole, you know, all of us diaspora organization, not just Life, you know, can be a channel to foreign companies, to funding, to mentorship. But you know, we need you, local organization, local NGOs and social enterprise to you know, to be the glue that, you know, that makes us together work better at replacing the shortcomings of the state and of the country. You know, that's not an easy task. It's a tall order, but I think we've done small steps. You know, the question that we're all trying to think through as part of this webinar and other bilateral conversations we're having is, how can we do more? How can we do this? As George said, it's a long journey. This is going to be going on for years. How can we sustain this rhythm, increase the rhythm, and do a lot more together for the country and for our citizens than what we have done so far?
Yeah, I think one interesting suggestion from Hiba Abu Slaymin in the chat is to develop a bit of a manual or a guide that individuals in the diaspora can use in conversations with their own employers or with companies to guide them towards job matching platforms, or to guide them through visa processes, because that would be a concern, so that we're all as individuals empowered to have more informed conversations with our employer, encourage them to hire from Jobs for Lebanon, from BOT, etc. I'm trying my best to read through the chats, but it's not an easy task. Any thoughts, or should we move to, I think, shift gears from tech, but also job connection into agriculture, and I'm gonna hope that Abdul Wahab is Asama. He is allowed to talk. Hello?
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Amazing. Abdul Wahab Turkmani. First of all, thank you all so much for the time you're putting in. It's always very, very heartwarming to see the effort everyone continues to pour into Lebanon. Hopefully something comes of it eventually. Okay, I'll introduce myself and I will talk a little bit about the problems I'm facing, and I think maybe the diaspora could help with when it comes to providing opportunities and creating jobs in Lebanon. Okay, I am the founder and CEO of Farmland. Farmland is a platform that facilitates and finances trade in the agriculture space. Essentially, we match buyers of agricultural produce with farmers, negotiate purchase agreements between the two, and with those purchase agreements as collateral, we finance the purchase of supplies and other working capital needs for farmers. We're focusing on the Middle East in general, but trying to launch a pilot in Lebanon. We've just raised our first round of funding. We'll be doing it in Q2 of this year. And we're trying to solve simultaneously two problems that go hand in hand in agriculture in Lebanon, but generally in Lebanon, which is first, market linkage. The Lebanese market is very fragmented. You have lots of very small farmers, lots of very small buyers, and them meeting and trading together is very challenging. And two, of course, access to finance is a problem today in Lebanon. You have some solutions like Cedar Oxygen that are coming in, but they're a bit on the larger side. They finance bigger businesses when the majority of businesses are still small to medium size. So we're kind of tackling that segment. And I would say the two core problems that I could see the diaspora solving for a lot of the conversation today, and a lot of the conversation that revolves around Lebanon is focused a lot on NGOs, one, two, on helping startups based in Lebanon. But I would say maybe there's a third angle that I would hope we can all address a bit more together, which is incentivizing businesses based outside of Lebanon, in Europe, in the Gulf, wherever, to do more business in Lebanon, to consider Lebanon as a market in and of itself. And I'd say there are two core things here. The first is, it would be amazing if somehow, I don't know, between Life, SEAL, and all the other organizations, we can set up some sort of facility to de-risk investments in Lebanon. I know from previous jobs, there are loads of family offices, let's say, that are based in the Netherlands that provide de-risking facilities if you want to invest in Africa. They come in and provide guarantees on debt. They provide junior capital, junior debt, junior equity. And that makes working in those countries so much more appealing. Setting up some sort of facility like that for Lebanon would be very helpful. There are a few of them, but again, they're focused on businesses and startups based in Lebanon. Most of them are funded by USAID. And the second one, which is typically what maybe governments try and do, but we don't need to talk about our government, is some sort of trade bureau, some sort of trade conference that creates a space for businesses based in Lebanon to meet businesses based outside of Lebanon, or introduce Lebanese trading businesses to foreign investors, foreign buyers. I can imagine a world where someone can convince Tesco or Carrefour to come and meet a bunch of Lebanese fruit and vegetable exporters. And creating these connections is something I think could add a lot of opportunity, could create so much demand for Lebanese produce and have ripple-on effects. The third one was something Fadi mentioned as well, which was support with employing people in Lebanon. I think a lot of the work Jobs for Lebanon and others are doing are great in that they connect you to people in Lebanon. But what would also be helpful is if there's some sort of service where you can outsource the entire employment process, because I'm also going through the process of employing people in Lebanon, and there's a challenge with taxes, daman, and all of that stuff. But it would be amazing, like Fadi said, if there was one company where you could go say, I want to hire this person, and they take care of everything in the back end and carry that load off your back. So yeah, those were the three things that I thought of would be amazing if the diaspora could provide some sort of de-risking mechanism for financing or expanding into Lebanon, some sort of trade conference or trade bureau that connects companies based inside Lebanon with companies based outside Lebanon, could be like a conference. And the third thing is full end-to-end support with employing people based in Lebanon, not just connecting, but also handling the entire process.
Wow, that's a proper to-do list. It's actually quite actionable list of things to do. And the other point, I'm taking advantage of the fact that other speakers are still online. Marianne, the things around supporting the back office of employing people and not just creating the job opportunity itself, is that something that BOT does to a certain extent? Is that something you're aware that someone actually covers?
Maya, it depends to what extent. It depends on the scope. But this is something that we have done here in Lebanon. So it really depends on what type of services that can be done remotely. So yes, I mean, I can say yes, but we'll have to understand more the type of services to be really, to avoid setting high expectations as well.
Maya, if I can jump in actually with a comment/question for Abdul Wahab. I think if I understand what or how you guys get involved, I think there's a topic which goes back a little bit to Maya, one of the initial areas this whole webinar was focused on initially, which is, you know, export opportunities. I think there is a derivative of that, which is import substitution. I think import substitution is a critical area in Lebanon right now. I mean, if you take, for example, some of the projects that SEAL has funded over the years, which is helping communities, right? Define it as in any form or shape, whether it's a group of people, a group of farmers, a women's cooperation in a certain town or village in Lebanon, to develop or upscale economic sustainability for whatever project, agriculture or other. We at SEAL have been very involved in many agricultural related projects. One of the areas that I think there's a lot of help that's needed is import substitution. And we can, to a certain extent, combine efforts with more than one organization, focusing on, given the situation, the economic situation in Lebanon today, by definition, imports have become much more difficult and certainly much more expensive. So there is a crisis and a problem there that needs to be solved, in that a lot of people can no longer afford a lot of the basic products that we as a country used to import. On the other hand, we're all in some form or shape trying to help existing producers of products, whether it's on the manufacturing side or the example that I think Abdullah was talking about, and certainly the one I'm referring to as part of the SEAL project on the agricultural front, or some of the Lebanese products like Moune and others, for example. There is, I think, an area where we can optimize or maximize the impact of funds that we all deploy in some form or shape, fund or resources, in that trying to help with the import substitution gap from the economic situation and the currency devaluation and all that, by redirecting some of the efforts to help existing producers or manufacturers access the market, whether it is the local market, and that's where the import substitution element of it comes in, or regional or foreign markets through export opportunities. We've been involved in both aspects, both sides of that equation, I would say. On the export side, working with some of the beneficiaries of our products, for example, a women's cooperation in Alay, that we have a few years ago funded the purchase of more modern equipment for some of the products that they produce, initially to sell locally in their towns or in their areas of Lebanon. That market shrinks on a daily basis, as we all know. We came back for effectively round 2 with that same cooperative last year or the year before, to basically help them position themselves to tackle the foreign markets, i.e. export opportunities, by helping them go through the ISO certification process. But I do think that in addition to the export lens to help folks in Lebanon expand their market, therefore expand their economic sustainability by selling outside of Lebanon, there's also, especially given that economic crisis that the country is going through right now, an import substitution element of it that we can help a lot with. And I think, and Abdulwahab, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, given the agricultural focus of it, if you think, or if you guys have been involved in that import substitution aspect.
I mean, definitely import substitution and increasing exports are two of the core things we need to focus on with our trade deficit. Just a quick point, when you were talking about meeting local needs, one of the things that shocks me about agriculture is Lebanon has something like 615,000 hectares of arable agricultural land, of which today only 300,000 are designated farms, of which post-crisis less than half are active farms. Yep. So post-crisis, about half the farms in Lebanon have shut down. And you're talking about a country that used to import 80% of its food, produce locally 20%, and now half of that capacity is gone. So without serious intervention sometime soon, I think we have a food security crisis on our hands, which doesn't get as much airtime as it should, which is why import substitution is very, very core from just purely a food security perspective for the country. One of the core problems with import substitution, again, in Lebanon is producing locally still relies on importing seeds, fertilizers, and all of the inputs that go into agriculture from abroad. So there still is a hard currency bill to pay, which as an investor, I'm thinking from my own perspective now, I'm happy to carry some local currency risk if I can mix it with export contracts. If I'm putting in X amount and half the sales go into export, so at least I can cover my hard currency expenses and then take a risk with the local currency, that's fine. And this is where I think the value of sea life and what have you comes in. I find a lot of initiatives go towards grants, but a lot of the grant making bodies I've spoken to are less excited about using grants to leverage more investment. So I've spoken to maybe, I don't know, let's consider USAID and what have you. They put $1 million into an initiative that was focused on building a cooperative or buying tractors or what have you. But $1 million you give to a fund that can then raise another 9 million on top of it, because the first million is first loss. That's now 10 million we can deploy, and that's debt that we can recycle through the year in, year out. So there is an opportunity to take grant money or first loss capital and leverage that money by bringing in more foreign investment so that we can increase the amount of work we do rather than just spending it and then that money is gone. I think there are much more impactful and leverage ways we can deploy the money that we're all putting together. And there should be some sort of partnership here between grant-making organizations and startups or companies in general that are trying to expand trade in Lebanon. It's, in my opinion, it's the single highest impact thing we can do.
If I may, hello, hi Maya, if I may.
Yeah, hi Fadi.
Abdulwahab, it's Fadi Busy. Thanks for the mention. Just because you mentioned SE Factory and our managed service which basically helps with the process of the recruitment and taking care of all the admin and the paperwork, we're already doing it for knowledge workers. So it's not just tech, it's digital workers, business analysts, and so on with our customers outside Lebanon. So this is already happening. I've never thought about it for other silos, and I'm more than happy to get on a chat and to discuss it, see if there's any synergies. So short answer is we already offer this. But we're not in agriculture, but if there are overlaps or synergies, I would love to collaborate. And plus, I think, like you said, the opportunity, the problems agriculture in Lebanon are immense, but this is also a big opportunity. You can think of course, regenerative agriculture, which reduces the amount of inputs and thus reduces the import needs for farmland, at least in theory. Not in theory, it's been done outside. I don't know if it's been done in Lebanon. So there's a lot that can be done on the agricultural side. And if there's any way we can help that makes sense for SC Factor, we'd love to brainstorm on these.
Perfect. If you can just like maybe message me your contact details, I'll reach out.
I'll connect you both. I'll just send you an email to both of you. I am conscious of time, and I feel that هلا حمينا شوي يعني بالconversation بس we are like tight on time. I'm gonna ask Dr. Najat Saliba to join, and done.
Hi, good evening. Thank you,
Hi.
Maya, for the invitation.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you all for such a refreshing conversation. And thank you for all the people who intervened and presented their work. It's really nice to hear how many people are working hard in this country to actually save what's left from the country. I'm here to introduce Khaddit Beirut and the work that we're doing in Khaddit Beirut. And from the beginning of the conversation, everything mainly revolved around the explosion on August 4. So us experts in LAU, in AUB, in USG, we're not an organization, but we felt that our expertise have to be put into action. And that's why we grouped ourselves and we operate under AUB to actually find a roadmap or a guidebook that allows us to be proud of any intervention we make. So it's not about the number, it's about creating models of excellence. And we decided to create those models of excellence based on science and systematic approach in 4 vital initiatives. The first one is creating community healthcare centers. Of course, it's grassroots and community driven. Creating models of public schools that we are proud of, helping small and medium businesses be inclusive and accessible in addition to rebuilding their businesses. And definitely, I cannot live without making our environment a little bit better than we have it right now. I want to just give an example in every single initiative how we're working. At the Community Healthcare Center, we are working with the primary healthcare unit at the Ministry of Public Health. Of course, we believe that we cannot substitute for the government. We have to work with entities that we trust in the government so that after we intervene, things can become sustainable. We teamed up with the primary healthcare unit at the Ministry of Public Health, and we are opening a community healthcare center at the hospital in Karantina. So we're working together with the officials in the hospital in Karantina to actually build capacity at the community level, train the community in order for it to take care of itself. Mainly helping people who are not having a job right now to become nurse aides, for example, to care for homebound people who we found are many in the community. We are also helping other people in finding jobs around the community healthcare center. At the education level, let me say that at the community healthcare center, we don't want to do it without the diaspora. We reached out to many medical doctors and nurses all around the world. We are working closely with the International Lebanese Medical Association and collaborating together to open some ways to do telehealth and telemedicine from abroad. At the education level, we are teaming up with Just Care from the University of Toronto to actually train 6 public schools to become digitally literate and to also help the teachers, the students, the parents, so that the whole school becomes a community school. I have a lot to say about those schools who are needing lots of infrastructure, materials, food perhaps sometimes, electronic devices, And most importantly, the teachers themselves need to be up to date in the digitizing literacy, and also up to date in how to develop materials for courses online. With this team, we're also teaming up with the Lebanese Association for Education, LAES, and we're working with around 40 educational specialists from Lebanon and around the world to actually make those community education schools ready for their teachers and their students. At the level of supporting small and medium businesses, we are working with around 100 businesses in Gemmayzi, Karantina, and Marmkhaili. We help them, along with several NGOs, rebuild their shops, but now working with the shop owners and their employees we are developing an upskilling program, and we want their businesses to be inclusive and accessible. We're working with the Center of Inclusive Business Leadership, CIBL, at the Olayan School of Business at AUB to actually also make sure that their employee and the employers are both thinking about gender sensitivity, inclusivity, and accessibility. At the environmental level, we're working with like 50 environmental specialists all around the world to actually assess the exposure and the damages caused by the exposures during the blast on the people living in Beirut, and definitely teaming with Impact Lebanon to work on many environmental projects all across the world. In a nutshell, we cannot do it without the diaspora. We need your expertise. We need your systematic approach. We need your scientific approach and professionalism to be a demand so that to implement in Lebanon, to make it models of success. We don't want to do it a la Libanaise. We want to do it a la professional way. And that's why we need you. And everything we do, we have to make sure we ask for high accountability, high systematic approach, and we want to transform our country into a country that everyone will be proud of. Just one note here that definitely we are working with LabNet on an IT program, blockchain, and others. I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I'll be ready to answer any questions if you have.
Thank you, Professor. I echo what Mounir Habti just said, and the process also changed what al-Libanese mean. So that's a bit more positive. But I think really like all-encompassing work. Any questions? I will allow Asma Zain, who is undercover using the name of Ghada Salibi today, to talk about Ardi Ardak and LLWB, Lebanese League of Women in Business.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Maya. Thank you. I was listening to all my friends with whom I seriously work and support. We work on different projects together, whether it would be OT, SE Factory, Haddat Beirut. So LLWB, Lebanese League for Women, is the beacon of coordination and collaboration with different NGOs, startups. Sorry. I want to say that LLWB is a group of 420 professional Lebanese women working all over Lebanon. We come from different industries. Before the blast, before Corona, and before all the disasters of Lebanon, we were tackling all the projects that you are working on, whether on the level of engaging girls in STEM industries, whether on the level of empowering women, whether on the level of being active on different rural areas. But due to the recent problems and catastrophes that happened, we had to shift a bit and meet the developments that happened in Lebanon. Now we are working on a project that's called RD Ardact in cooperation with the AUB, Environment Sustainable Development Unit. This is for you, Wissam, to take note of and listen to what I'm saying, because I heard you talking a lot about agriculture. If you are talking about agriculture, then you have to get in touch with us. Plus, I met last year with our friend Abdel Wahab Turkomani, but he left without coming back to us. This is not to say that because I want him to come back with his good ideas and approaches. We are actually very active on the ground. We work in Tripoli in the north, in Akkar. We work in the Bekaa. We work in Shuf area. Personally, I'm a part of Al-Fanar. I'm a part of LLWB. I'm a part of Rawad al-Tanmiya in Tripoli. That gives me the network and that gives me the outreach. Plus, I have a lot of friends in Life and Impact Lebanon, but we never had the chance to work together. What I want to say here, dear friends, is that Lebanon is in dire need of diaspora. What we need in Lebanon is we need you to come out with a brief on how you want to take things further. What is your future approach? How you want to help on all the initiatives that we discussed tonight. We want tangible plan. We want a clear vision. We want a clear path, because we are in a really desperate area here, and in spite of all what we are all doing, we haven't scratched the surface yet. We haven't scratched the surface yet. The Lebanese employment issue is massive. It's not only on technological level, it's not only on IT. We have to change the approach. Of course, tech is high and in demand, but we have to work on vocational trainings. We have to work on other trainings in order to give our market the right exposure and the right needs. So if we are here to talk about the future needs, yes, we need vocational trainings, which is very scarce and doesn't exist in Lebanon. We are talking about food safety, yes, but we have the right professionals to work on food safety. We are talking about supporting startups, businesses, and entrepreneurs. Then this needs another webinar and it needs another approach. But what I'm trying to say is don't lose hope, keep your support, but you have to take it into a macro level. You have to outreach other NGOs. You have to outreach other active partners on the ground in order to really know what are the needs now in Lebanon. I might be a bit harsh, but because I live it and I have lived it through all the phases of the Lebanese issues, whether civil war, whether Israeli war. I've started my company in Lebanon and it was a very successful. This is why I believe in Lebanon, because when we started our company in Lebanon, we succeeded and we made it. That's why I want you to change your approach. Thank you very much, Maya.
Thank you, Asma.
I might have not said what you want, but it was a platform to express my feelings and how I believe Life, Seal, and Mr. Lebanon can help.
It's always good to get the pep talks, Asma. No worries at all. Thank you for the insights. I'm just extremely conscious of time. Also conscious of I don't know how chat is working. If everyone is seeing the different shout outs for various initiatives and various groups and what they're doing in different areas. One of the I think that the least we can do after this session is really a compilation of the different initiatives we have talked about in different respects, and then share them in a hopefully digestible email, but also with contact details for whoever wants to share their contact details. So if you have an initiative, if you've been working on something, if you're struggling with a specific issue that you think this community that was gathered on this call can help solve, please do share it. We'll put together a bit of a post-webinar content that we can share. Georges, Wissam, Jean-Marc, what thoughts do you have? What parting thoughts do you want to leave us with? Georges first.
Okay, I'll go first. So this was wonderful. Obviously, every time we do this, we discover more organizations that are being involved. I just want to basically summarize what we talked about, or I should say, at a high level, really, we need to find a platform for all of us to come together to keep sharing the information so that each one of us does their job, but also make sure they're connected and collaborating and reducing redundancy. I think that's the takeaway from my perspective. And one more thing is, I go back to, we need to really share success stories about matching employers with talent. That's going to be critical for each one of us to go to their constituents to try to convince them to hire people in Lebanon, and that's important.
If I go next, Maya, I echo what George said, and some people on the chat were saying, you know, we should try to think and come up with the mechanisms to coordinate more on a more regular basis on certain themes like job creation. I'm very encouraged to see all these new initiatives. I took some notes, but I think your idea, Maya, of circulating maybe a list of a summary of the content or some of those initiatives and the contact of those who gave them, I think that'll be a good way, because we can follow up at least as live to some of these and see where we can take that. And lastly, again, I want to encourage particularly people in Lebanon. I know it's very gloom and dire today, but you know, frankly, it's gloom and dire everywhere at the moment with lockdowns and what have you. And I think this ability to work remotely is change habits. So outsourcing jobs and projects to Lebanon is much easier now than it's ever been before. So so please hang in there. Keep helping people stay in jobs in Lebanon, and you know, we'll do our best abroad to help you with, you know, whichever means we can.
All right, I'll go next, Maya. I'll be very brief. George and Jean-Marc expressed what we all feel. First of all, thank you and Impact Lebanon for putting this together. It's extremely helpful. It actually does achieve some of what we've all been talking about over the last couple of hours, which is that connectivity. I think one way to describe what we're all doing is, you know, getting into the information business, learning about what we're all doing, sharing information about where the know-how is, where the skills are, who's doing what, to try and, if not avoid, minimize duplication of effort. So much needs to be done. I agree with what Asma said. We're barely scratching the surface, and there's a ton more to do, and the need keeps growing exponentially. I'm very proud to be part of, you know, this group of organizations trying to make an impact. I think Lebanon is bleeding from on every possible front possible. Talent, wealth, know-how, health, environmental stability, and the list goes on. So anything any of us can do we absolutely should be extremely focused and connected. And my last shout out is one that I started with a couple of hours ago, is the youth. There is phenomenal and impressive effort that we're all seeing from the youth in Lebanon and the Lebanese youth outside of Lebanon. At the end of the day, they're the future of this country. So anything any of us can do to help them, empower them, guide them, and fund them, we absolutely should be focused on that. That's all, man.
100%. Thank you all for the time. I will leave us with a parting dream or a wish. I've always dreamt of an easy to use, very user friendly platform where you put the mini Google of Lebanon, essentially, where you put who is doing what about this, and then you get very easy answers. I think that the opportunities or the people that we've invited on the Scholar are doing amazing things, and there are so many more that are doing so much more. And going back to Issam's point, if we can improve that information service business that we are in, just to get access to who is doing what. We're such a small country, and yet getting to who is doing what seems a bit harder than we can. So until that mini Lebanese Google get formed, we'll keep doing webinars, I guess, and then try to meet new people. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for the guests. Thank you for everyone who shared through chat, and apologies for not giving you the platform that you definitely deserve. I'll do my best with like a summary email. And any thoughts, feedback, comment, please do share. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Maya.
Maya, great job. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. You put this together. This is amazing.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.